Welcome back to Yoga Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Waycott. If you're new here, I've been a yoga teacher for over 14 years, and today I run a fully independent yoga business that doesn't rely on studio classes. I offer pre-registered yoga series in my community, as well as continuing education for yoga teachers who want to refine their skills. Over the years, I've learned a lot about what it takes to run a yoga business that's actually sustainable. And part of my mission is to share real conversations with yoga teachers around the world about what it's actually like to work in the modern yoga industry. That's exactly what Yoga Insider Podcast is here for. Grab yourself a cup of coffee and let's dive into today's episode. Now, on today's episode, I am doing a listener Q&A. So last week on Instagram, I asked you to send me your questions so that I can answer them here on the podcast. And this is actually the second Q&A episode that I've done. So I did another, but I think it was like last summer. It was quite a long time ago. And so I was like, it's been a long time. Our listenership has grown so much since last summer. Like, we have listeners in almost 50 countries. And yeah, the fact that you guys are all consuming long form content like this and taking the time every week, not only to listen to the podcast, but to also share it and engage with it and leave comments or send me a message and tell me, you listened to an episode and you enjoyed it. None of that is ever lost on me. And so I thought it would be a great way to connect with some of you. And I am going to go through a few of your questions today. And I'm starting with a question that came through that's actually like a little bit of a personal reflection. So the question is, what is your favorite thing about being a yoga teacher right now? And how has that evolved? So this is such a good question. They're all such good questions, by the way. Like, every single thing you all asked, I was like, oh, this is so good. Like, this is giving me full on other podcast ideas. But anyways, this is such a nice opportunity for reflection. And I just want to say thank you for asking this. So when I think about this question, like, what's my favorite thing about teaching yoga right now and how has that evolved? My mind actually goes towards something I love about teaching yoga that hasn't changed. And I want to talk about that first. So one of the things that has remained the same for me and hasn't changed since I started teaching is the deep sense of reverence and peace that I feel near the end of teaching a class. So this is like when the active portion of teaching is finished. And obviously teaching, it's active the entire time, just in terms of energetic and mental engagement. But basically it's like when we're moving through our last few poses and I'm talking less and less, and we eventually settle into Shavasana. It's like in that particular space where I always feel a real sense of cohesion with the students in the room and with my higher self. And in those quiet moments, it's just so easy to feel a connection to something bigger than all of us. And in those moments, I am really filled with just pure peace and gratitude. So when my students are resting in Shavasana, I'm usually in what I would call a light meditation. So I am meditating, but it's a form of meditation where I don't allow my awareness or attention to leave the room. So my eyes are usually closed, but I'm still present in the space. I don't go up and out or travel somewhere else, if you know what I'm getting at. And that is so that I can remain an energetic anchor for everyone else in the class. And so while I'm doing that, while I'm there in this kind of light meditation and I'm kind of just anchoring the room, I allow myself in those moments to connect to the essence of yoga. And I feel it every single time I teach. It's that feeling of peace and unconditional love that I came to know within myself through yoga when I was a child. And I believe that feeling was a driving factor in me knowing at 5 years old that I would be a yoga teacher. Becoming a yoga teacher wasn't a logical thing that I thought about. It was more of an inner knowing. And I believe that part of it is connected to that particular feeling that is available to me when I teach and when I practice yoga. And that feeling has always been there. Now, something that is my favorite thing about being a yoga teacher that has evolved over time is something that I was actually thinking about the other day. And this is the fact that there is a self-assuredness that I feel around my work. And this sense of self-assurance is not to be confused with arrogance or with the idea that I won't continue learning or that I'm not open to new ways of doing things. The opposite is true. And the longer I teach, the more curious I get and the more I realize how much more there is out there. The richness of yoga exists in an infinite well. And that's not going to change, but there's something to say for having taught yoga to real people for almost 15 years, where you do have a level of clarity around why you teach what you teach. There's a lot of clarity that emerges just through time and through repetition about what my values are as a yoga teacher and how those show up in my actions, how those show up in the way that I teach, the way that I show up for my community, the way that I am on the mat and off the mat. And so I think that self-assurance is one of the gifts that comes with time. When I was a newer yoga teacher, I think that there were some things that got under my skin a little bit more easily. I took feedback to heart sometimes, or I took it personally. And now it's not that I am not open to feedback or trying new approaches, but I have developed better discernment around what's mine and what isn't. What is genuinely constructive and what is projection. And I know that as long as I remain open to learning and I don't get attached to one way of doing things, as long as I remain teachable and open to changing, I think that I will continue to feel a lot of internal peace around my work. So that is one of my favorite things about teaching yoga right now that has evolved over time. And it feels nice to be in that place. Okay. Another question, another really good one is, how do I get photos for a website or for promotion that feel authentic? Okay, great question. I can relate to the feeling of not resonating with every yoga photo shoot that I have ever been part of. And one of the perks of teaching in studios is that a lot of times studios organize photo shoots for their teachers, obviously for their own branding and marketing. And like usually teachers get access to those photos and you can use them for your own class promotion. And I think that, if you just teach at one yoga studio and you can use the photos from that studio for your class promotion, like that's great and that's going to work really well. But I start to feel like there's a little bit of a discrepancy when you're a teacher who is starting to have more independent offerings, or you teach at like multiple places, then those photos from someone else's business might not feel like they fully represent you. They could be really great for promoting some sort of collaboration that you have with that business, or like a specific class or specific event that you have at that place. But for your more general marketing, if you will, about like who you are and what you do and what you're about, those photos might not feel like the most authentic like option. And that's something that I've felt. So, you probably weren't the person to choose the photographer for that studio photo shoot. You might have been told how to pose. You were probably told what to wear. There are probably lots of distinctive things about those photos, right down to like the color scheme or the presets that were used, that represent someone else's brand, but they don't represent your brand. And that has actually been like not a struggle. I mean, it's not a struggle anymore, but it was a struggle for me at one point to like visually separate myself from someone else's brand that I was kind of tied up in the past. So at least for me, that's kind of where the discrepancy lived. And as I transitioned towards fully independent teaching, it became more and more important that I had photos and videos that represented me. But I had quite a few like disappointing photo shoots before I got to that point. And before I really realized like, oh, like even though these photos look nice, they don't actually represent me, or they don't actually represent like what I'm trying to communicate to like my ideal client. So first of all, I think who you choose as a photographer is huge. You don't have to choose the same photographer that everyone else in your community uses, or that like every business in your town uses. Spend some time looking at different photographers out there. You might even branch out into photographers that are like in a little bit of a different city, and maybe you take a day and you go out to see them and like shoot somewhere, different. But look at like whose work do you resonate with? What style of photo really speaks to you? What are you drawn to? You might pick different photographers for different photo shoots even. And like just keep in mind that you don't have to shoot everything all at once. I feel like it's good to have the mindset that content in general, whether it is for social media, whether it's for your website, that this is kind of like one of those ongoing living projects that never really ends. Like we have to keep getting new content because we keep evolving and our offerings will keep evolving, and like that has to, the visuals have to move and evolve with us to keep conveying what we need to convey to people. So one thing that I'll share, because I think it might be helpful, is that I like to view content kind of in two different ways. So I like to think about getting two different types of photos or videos. And you could do this like all in the same shoot with the same photographer, or maybe you split this up into like two separate things. So one type of content is going to represent what it's like to be in a class with you. And depending on where you teach and how you kind of operate your classes, that's going to look different. So, for example, I teach yoga inside a museum. I run pre-registered yoga classes there every month. And so to showcase like, what's it actually like to be in this space? What does it look like? What does it feel like? I got my husband to come and film a mock class inside the space. So this is one of the ways that you can do things, is to invite in some friends or some models to like be your students so that you can get the shots that you need. Obviously, I feel like none of you listening to this are ever going to do this, but you don't want to just teach your regular class and then have a photographer show up and a bunch of people like don't know they're going to be photographed. So like set it up, do it outside of your regular class time. But I feel like you already know this. But I got my husband to come shoot a mock video, and I had real students come and offer to be models. I wore normal clothes that I would wear to normally teach a yoga class. And we captured some really nice video content in the space to give students a sense of what to expect and what it actually looks like when you come to my class. Another example is a marketing photo shoot that I did to promote a 200-hour yoga teacher training. So I rented a studio space. I had a model with me who was going to be my student. And we basically set up scenes that represented things that you might see in a 200-hour training. Now, obviously, this wasn't like a full room of people. It was just me and one other student. But we did things like integrate the training manual that I wrote into some of the photos, because that's something that you would see in a training. There were some photos of me like, kind of sitting and like helping the student with their posture and like offering them some assistance. And so if there is a way for you to capture some photos that represent the way that you teach and what that looks like, I feel like that's really helpful. So another example is like if you work with students one-on-one, what does that look like? Like, are you sitting on the floor next to them? Do you have a laptop with you? Do you have some kind of notebook or like clipboard with you normally? What types of props might you have? What do you actually wear when you teach? I'm really big on wearing stuff now that I like actually wear when I teach yoga. Because I have to say that the shoots where I bought some kind of like new outfit or wore something that I wouldn't actually wear for teaching are usually the ones that felt like inauthentic to me. So that's just one thing to note is like if you have something that you always wear and you feel comfortable and good in it, then like just wear that. You don't need to go get a new outfit. And then the other type of content that I would try to capture is what might be known as lifestyle content. And this is the content that shows a little bit more of like who you are outside of teaching yoga, like on the mat or working directly with students. So think of this as an opportunity to showcase just a little bit more of your personality, because that is often a very important point for being able to make connections with others. If someone is following you, like they already know that you teach yoga. They are probably also interested in yoga if they're following your like yoga page. But what is going to make them feel most connected to you isn't the yoga. It's actually like all of the other little things that you have in common. I'm a really big fan of lifestyle content that showcases you in some kind of environment that you frequent. So there might be like a favorite trail that you like to walk on or hike on. Maybe you have a favorite coffee shop that you like to go to, or you have a little office that you work in, or you have a favorite chair that you like to read in. Maybe you want to integrate like your pets into the photos somehow, or your favorite books or your favorite drink. Like just little things. It doesn't have to be like oversharing or anything like that, but like just little things that represent you and your personality and your like regular life outside of being a yoga teacher. Um, I feel like those can kind of they can go a long way. And like that kind of photo doesn't need to be overly posed or anything like that. I think it helps if you have a friend or a photographer that you feel really comfortable with. But those would be like the two main categories that I would try to get photos of. So photos that portray what it's like to actually work with you. So whether like that's you in a classroom with a bunch of students, maybe that's you one-on-one with somebody, maybe you teach retreats. And so you've got pictures of you like as a retreat leader, or you teach trainings and you've got pictures of you in that kind of environment. Like maybe you teach chair yoga, then you should probably have a picture of you doing yoga in a chair. Like that's one category. And then the other category is like lifestyle content, which is like, who are you outside of being a yoga teacher? Because that's going to be just like a really, really important connection point for people. Now, I don't find asana photos like super interesting anymore. And again, I feel like this is just a phase that you get to when you've taught yoga for a long time. You're like, I don't care. Now, I know for some photo shoots, like we need to do some asana photos. And I literally just did a really big photo shoot for a really big brand where I did a whole bunch of asana photos. And I'm sure they're going to look really cool. And I'm excited to share them like when I get my hands on them. But asana photos don't fully represent like the scope or the extent of the work that I do. So that's just something that I like to keep in mind, because I feel like, you know, we think of ourselves like, okay, I'm a yoga teacher. I've got to go do a yoga photo shoot, and I'm going to go to a top of a mountain, and then I'm going to like bust out every pose that I know, and we're going to capture pictures of it. And I feel like even though those photo shoots, like they might look really cool and maybe we get some great photos that we love from them, it still might not feel like the most authentic way to portray what we actually do. And maybe that's where there's a little bit of discrepancy. So yeah, like obviously integrate some asana like into the photos that you take, but I feel like there's other ways to also communicate like the other things that you do. And I would try to see it from the perspective that you want students to have an idea of what it feels like to work with you, and an idea of like who you are as a person. Also, go into your photo shoot with a plan. Really like spend some time thinking about it beforehand. And like if you're stuck about what should I be getting photos of? Like, you know, I've paid for this photo shoot. What do I do now? Like, don't be afraid to bring it up with a friend or a colleague, and maybe there's somebody that you can kind of like bounce it off of too. But I love to make a Pinterest board because I feel like every time I show up for a photo shoot, my mind blanks. I forget everything that I ever knew. And it's like there's pressure, right? Usually there's like a time limit, and you know, like you want to go in prepared. So make a Pinterest board, collect some ideas of like what you want the photos to look like, write down to like how you want to pose, to what kinds of like props you want to bring with you, to certain lighting effects or colors, like anything that inspires you, like put it on that Pinterest board so that when you go into the shoot, it can be a collaboration between you and the photographer, and so that you are kind of upping the chances of getting what you need from the shoot as well. Okay, I will do one more question. This one is also so good. Thank you to everyone who submitted questions, by the way. But our last question is, how do I ask for a raise as a contractor with a yoga studio? How do I ask for a raise as a contractor with a yoga studio? I think it's so great that you are thinking about this, because I've met a lot of yoga teachers over the years who don't even realize that asking for a raise or renegotiating their contract is even an option. So I think it's a really great reminder that we need to see ourselves as contractors who are hired because we are skilled in providing a specific service for a business that business needs. And this is always such a hot topic, because as a longtime yoga teacher, I can confirm that wages really haven't gone up a whole lot since I started teaching yoga almost 15 years ago. But the cost of a membership and the cost of a drop-in have gone up significantly. And so has the cost of everything else. And that means that overhead for studio owners has gone up, and overhead for sole proprietors has gone up as well. Okay, so everybody is paying more for everything. We all know that. If you're going to ask for a raise from a studio and you are a contractor there, I would try to approach it from a collaborative place. So kind of like, I'd love the opportunity to renegotiate my contract so that we can come to some sort of agreement that's going to work for both of us. Like, I want to find a way for this to benefit both of us. You've really got to pitch it in a way that highlights the value that you bring to that business or that studio. So try to reflect on, and again, like you can always ask other people about this too. Maybe they have a perspective that you don't see. But what is it about you that makes you really valuable to the studio owner? So maybe you're a super reliable sub and you fill in all the time, last minute, like, other teachers always got some stuff going on, suddenly can't make it to their class. Like, you're the one who steps up and fills in all the time. That makes you a huge asset. Like, being able to keep classes running smoothly without any cancellations, always having a teacher available, huge. Okay. Now, on the other hand, if you're the teacher who's like constantly canceling your class and constantly needs a sub, it might be a little bit trickier. Another thing that might make you a really big asset is like if you have been part of the studio for quite a long time and you've really gotten to know the students and they come because they feel really comfortable with you and your classes are really busy, like that obviously makes you a huge asset to the business. Another thing would be like, maybe there's a lot of versatility in the way that you teach, and you have the ability to teach and cover many different class styles. That seems like something that would be really valuable to a studio owner compared to a teacher who isn't as versatile and is limited in terms of like the class styles that they either are trained to teach or are like capable of teaching. So think about those things too, like really reflect on those things, make a list. I'd also take a look at like if you're at a studio where students are able to leave reviews and feedback, like are there any themes that you see there in your class reviews about like what makes you really stand out as a teacher? Is there one thing that students are like always complimenting or like, keeps them coming back to your class? Really pay attention to what those things are. And then the other thing that I would do is take a look at your contract and look for any discrepancies between your job description and then what you actually do when you show up and teach. So an example of this is like, let's say the job description is just that you show up at least 10 minutes early, you teach a class, you get paid $50. But the reality is that you show up 45 minutes early because the students arrive 30 minutes early and there's never anyone working at the front desk, and you need to get there that early to check people in and sell memberships. But maybe that's not in your contract whatsoever. Like, that would be a really good point to bring up where there might be some space to renegotiate. But I would say that the overarching theme should be on the value that you bring to their business, in terms of keeping their business running smoothly, in terms of the value that you bring to like client satisfaction and retention and the business having a positive reputation. Like, really try to frame it from like a studio owner's perspective, and try to come with some ideas as well. It might be as simple as like, at the end of the day, you need $10 more per class, and is there any way for them to work that into their budget? And like, here's why, and here's, what you're bringing to the table, and like give tangible examples. And maybe there's also a more creative solution that you have to come to. Maybe they can't work $10 per class more into their budget, but maybe they could offer you free studio space when there aren't classes running, and you could run some privates, or use it to run a series or something like that. Like, really see if there's a way. But obviously, at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, you probably need more money per class, because like that's what's going to pay your bills. I think yoga teachers are the heart of like any studio. Teachers are the ones who really influence like the student experience at the studio. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if the studio has the trendiest branding, or if they sell really cool stuff in their shop, or if they always have like cold lemongrass towels at the end of class. Like, those things help and create a nice experience, but good, reliable, skilled, kind yoga teachers are like the most important thing. And I know that the costs associated with running a yoga studio are huge, and that the studio model itself has a lot of limitations. But I also think that wages for teachers should reflect the cost of living and the value that you bring to the studio as a whole. And it is unfortunate that a lot of yoga studios or yoga teachers rather, are burning themselves out teaching lots of low-paying classes. If you can get some classes on your schedule that pay more, like maybe they're corporate or maybe they're private classes, or even better, if you can run something independently, I think that teaching yoga will feel a lot more sustainable financially. So I hope that helps. If you want more like specific advice, let me know. Feel free to send me a message. But yeah, thanks again for submitting some questions for today's little Q&A. I hope that you enjoyed that. If you liked it and you want to do it again, or you want to do this kind of thing more frequently, let me know. Leave a little comment wherever you're listening, and maybe we can, I don't know, even do this like quarterly, or more often than that. If you have questions that you want to ask, it's kind of fun for me. It gets me thinking about like all sorts of different things. So I just appreciate you so much. Appreciate you all engaging with the podcast. And yeah, I will see you next week. That's another episode of Yoga Insider. And once again, my name is Alex Waycott. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you next time.